There's a window here. It won't be open long, and Benair will have gotten away with it.
I don't feel comfortable letting you go in there alone.
I'm not helpless.
It's his life, his choice, but no matter how this turns out, it will end badly for you.
Oscar winner Nicolas Cage stars in the new spy thriller, Dying of the Light. Cage plays Evan Lake, a veteran CIA operative who has a brain disease that forces him to retire. But when he finds out his nemesis is still alive, he's forced to go on one last mission to destroy him. Welcome back to Arise on Screen. Julian Roman is here with me, as is Rakia Mays.
Hello.
All right, so I thought that this movie, I think I liked it better than both of you because I like spy movies. Okay?
Wow, that's all I'm saying.
But
wow.
I'm going to go to you first, Rakia,
Yes.
because you really didn't like this movie.
No, that is not what I said.
Okay, talk
Setting
to
me up.
talk
Okay,
to
well, here's the thing. This was taken on Alzheimer's. That's what this was.
But they didn't take his daughter.
He was, come on, but he was this old operative and he wants to kick butt, but he's got some issues with his brain, which is a serious issue. He has dementia.
I thought
get
that was very interesting.
I thought it was an interesting storyline, a little bit of propaganda in it. Was the acting great? No, and I remember the days when I loved Nicolas Cage, but something about what he does now always reminds me
Like
of
adaptation.
Elvis.
Elvis? You
Yes.
felt Elvis in
What
this?
was the movie he did where he played
Leaving
Elvis?
Las Vegas?
That's
Honeymoon in
reminded-
Vegas.
Honeymoon
You
in
see?
Vegas, right.
Well, he's also
Exactly.
leaving Las Vegas too, but he's honeymoon in
Honeymoon
Vegas.
in Vegas. Now, you, Julian, you thought that you gave it a little more credit, I think, than Rakia.
No, this is a terrible film. I mean, listen, right? We know the story about this film. The film was taken from the director.
Yes, it was.
Edited behind his back. None of the stars want to publicize it,
wow.
but Nicolas Cage needs money. He's got tax problems. He needs to get paid, right? This is a straight-to-video B movie
Yes.
that nobody should ever
Well,
see.
now, originally this was supposed to have Harrison Ford in it.
Right, but it doesn't. That's a problem.
Okay.
I mean, this is like a B film, and
Yeah.
the problem is the guy's doing all these bad movies because he needs money. That's what it boils down to.
And you can tell on screen.
Right. He's
Yeah.
just, he needs that paycheck.
I have to say, first of all, I think that you guys, or especially you, Julian, are being a little
I'm a cruel man.
too cruel for this movie.
bad man.
I think it's not a great film, but I think underneath you can kind of see what that. Now, again, we're talking about a great. Paul Schrader's a one-time great screenwriter. He wrote Taxi
Used to be.
Driver.
One
Okay,
time?
Okay.
Used to be.
He was.
Have you seen
pretty
The
great.
Canyons?
No, I didn't see that. Okay. but I thought that what he was going for was trying to do something a little bit original in the genre. I don't know what his original 172-minute cut was like.
Right.
Okay, but for the studio to take it away from him, recut it, rescore it completely without his
Horrible.
knowledge is not. As a matter of fact, the rest of the cast are not too pleased about it. They put out this photo, which
Right.
you've probably seen.
Well, here's my thing. I shed a tear for Paul Schrader, but you know what? I like to eat the cake. I don't care how the cake is made. We're looking at the finished film. It doesn't matter how it got there. It's a bad movie. And I look at this film and I'm like, Nicolas Cage is collecting another paycheck to pay his
Yeah.
taxes. That's what I see it as.
Well, I can't defend it. It is a B movie. And the third act, it sort of falls apart.
Terrible. Excuse me.
Right.
Okay, but
thought you liked it.
I did. There are some things about it I really did like. As
Okay.
I thought that the notion of having a hero who's suffering from dementia
Right.
is a really interesting and somewhat timely thing. So.
Well, I mean, and the terrorists, he has an issue with the blood as well. So seeing these aging terrorists and CIA agents, that was at least the most interesting part of it.
All right, so I guess neither are you going to recommend this
Well,
film.
having Australia be Kenya,
Well, that's a production issue. All right, we're going to move on. Our next film is called The Last One. It's a documentary about the AIDS Memorial Quilt. The film traces the quilt's history, continued growth, and examines how the stigma, discrimination, social status, and lack of access to health care makes an already awful disease worse.
I knew every one of these people, and none of them survived.
We were laying down our dead in front of the White House. When are you going to stop this?
The quilt was created to be a weapon against not only a disease, but the cruelty and bigotry that the disease exposed.
It gave people meaning at a time when things seemed very, very dark.
Now, Julian, I know that you didn't think too much of this movie. You felt the news is old and whatnot, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting to see how they had come up with the concept for the quilt.
You know what? I guess maybe because I know about the quilt and it's been around for a long time, but maybe if you were a neophyte and you had no idea what it was, this would be a very enlightening story. I mean, the idea of the last panel for the last person who's going to get HIV is very noble, but I feel like everybody knows this story.
Now, you felt it was a good story for young people to see that don't know about
Absolutely. About the AIDS epidemic, about what these people who I've actually worked with before are passionate about working to find a cure to this disease and just remembering those that have passed. I didn't know about the last panel, and I thought that was interesting. A panel that actually signifies the cure of AIDS.
I agree, and I think it was very timely to release it on AIDS Awareness Day on that day, which has just passed. So, would you recommend?
Well, yeah, definitely, I guess.
You recommend?
I guess, yeah. It should be played everywhere, particularly for schools. There you go.
Okay. Well, we will be back. Coming up.
With a hilarious video of Guinevere James has turned into a morning routine for thousands of people across the country.
An overweight, washed-up former child star struggles with her dark addiction to social media and chooses to take any means necessary to get back on top in Delusions of Guinevere. Next, here on Arise on Screen.
Jamie sent me a link from Bobby Fowler. He has 64,000 views and it was posted yesterday.
If this fool can post videos to YouTube, I can post them too.
Looks like you're eating a bowl of cereal.
No.
This is gonna be ridiculously big.
That's a scene from a dark comedy called Delusions of Guinevere. It's about a former child star named Guinevere James who now, at almost 30, is overweight, washed up, and almost completely forgotten. Her obsession to become relevant sends her down a dark path. Now, I don't have to ask you, Julian, what you thought. I'm going to go to Rikia first.
Yes.
And her film, we could just close up on her face, says it all. So I take it you were not a fan of this movie.
No. This movie came off like a freshman student film, the very first one made ever. It was not good. It was poorly written. I thought the acting, I couldn't get past the acting and the way it was shot. I really thought maybe...
You didn't like its themes, the idea of social media?
I couldn't get past the acting being so bad to even pay attention to the themes. I wondered if this was a friend of yours film that you were trying to promote.
Well, here's my question. What did you really think of the film?
I did not like it.
That was sarcasm.
Yeah,
All right, now, Julian, let me go to you, okay? Because I think
Best film of the year, Mike.
Best film of the year. Oscar? Okay, Oscar bait. All right, you see, I think
Oscar bait.
I'm a little more with you because I think that you appreciated what it was trying to do.
It's a very amateurish film. You're right in the money about that. But it's basically a satire of social media. I mean, the whole idea of a washed-up child star eating cereal on YouTube and becoming famous again and, like, stalking people on Facebook. So that worked. But, yes, it's a very amateurish film. But it's not as terrible, I think, as you're making it.
No, it's definitely not as terrible. As a matter of fact, I think that it had some interesting things to say. I found, though it was amateurish, I'll admit, I found it somewhat entertaining.
No.
Okay, and I thought it was interesting because it's written and directed. The star, she co-wrote it with the director, and they did this together. And it's two women making a film that doesn't happen that often. And the fact that they wanted to put this amount of time and money into something about the subject, I found it was interesting. That's about the best thing I could say about it.
They put money into this? Oh,
well,
I couldn't
stop
tell.
now. Stop. Okay, you need to come out your show.
I'm just saying.
You need to come out your show. All right, I take it you would not recommend?
Absolutely not. No.
I think it's worth seeing.
It's worth
got
seeing.
some points
if you don't
that are
have to pay
humorous.
for it, is that what you're saying?
I mean, the cereal stuff I thought was hilarious. I really did.
Funny. Okay. Well, we're going to move on. Our final film is called Concerning Violence. It's a new documentary that takes a hard look at colonialism in Africa and the continent's eventual liberation from white rule from the 1960s up until today.
Colonialism is not a thinking machine, nor a body endowed with reasoning faculties. It is violence in its natural state.
Now, that voiceover you hear is Grammy Award winner Lauryn Hill, of course. And I found this film incredibly powerful. As a matter of fact, it made me angry, especially in light of what's going on now. There's so many things about this film that I could really do a whole show just talking about it. But I think you found it very powerful and moving as well. There were points in it where I was not moved to tears, but just moved to, clench my fist.
I mean, the film is really hard-hitting, right? It's done by Goran Olsen, who did the Black Power mixtape, and it's basically about the Swedish filmmakers who use this old archival footage and talk about institutionalized racism, right?
Which is a phrase I think very people really understand.
Right.
I mean, the footage and the stuff that you see is really hard to watch, you know, but it talks about what's happening now is a result of what's happening then, and it's continuing on, and it's brutal. And it's ugly.
It's brutal, it's ugly, and if it had any flaw, I think it was a little bit erudite.
Yes.
It's a little bit cerebral. Now, you felt the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there are times when it's just a little too artsy and a little too much reading and things like that, but it doesn't override the message about racism, institutionalized racism, and just how this isn't just a problem here in America based on what we're talking about and what's going on with Eric Garner and Ferguson, but this is a generational issue. It is a worldwide disease, and I love a film that shows that.
It is a worldwide disease, and I think
Yes.
a very human disease, because one of the things you see in there, especially going back to the 60s,
Oh, yes.
because
The
he goes
archival
through
footage is
the archival
really
footage.
powerful.
It's very powerful,
Very
and it goes
powerful.
through stages of the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to today. And what you see is that these people have this sense of entitlement,
Yes.
and this way of completely dismissing the humanity.
Completely.
Of the people whose country they've come into
That's right.
and have enslaved, essentially. And I have to say, this is a film I think everybody should see, like,
Yes.
right now.
Absolutely.
Right
you know,
now.
what you said was right on the money, because the footage itself, like, really speaks volumes. You know, people haven't seen a lot of this stuff, and to see, like, from the horse's mouth what the horse is really thinking is really powerful. So yes, maybe they could have toned down the voiceovers and the artistic flair and just let the
material
visual
speak
speak for itself. But overall, it's a really powerful film.
And the last point I'll make is that what was interesting is some of the footage was taken by news media from other countries.
Right.
And it's interesting to see how all these other countries were covering what was going on in the most dispassionate way you could possibly imagine.
Right.
So I think you'd recommend it?
Oh, definitely.
You as well?
Yes.
Well, I definitely would recommend it, and this has been a lot of fun today.
It was.
Okay, all right.
Funny.
And you too, I'll pay to see you two get
Would
into
you?
slugfest.
She'd beat me up.
You think so?
I'm weak. I'd be beaten
Oh,
up.
no, just that would be your
I'm
bootleg
sensitive.
moms, not
Okay.
me.
Well, I'm Mike Sargent, and we'll be back next week to talk more movies here on Arise on Screen.